Hello and welcome to Frogs of Lore. My name is Jason, and with me is Dustin.
Hello.
And Jim.
How's it going?
This is our inaugural podcast. The three of us are just friends, those two guys local to each other, and me, a friend online. We discuss Warmachine all the time, and we decided to, just take that from our private chat to to this podcast. That being the case, this episode is a little bit about us and who we are, and then we're going to get into what we're painting lately, what we're playing lately, and what we're excited about.
Hey, I'm Jim. I've been playing since Mark II, before my son was born, and then I had to quit because the play group kind of fell apart. Kind of got back into it recently. Got Dustin involved into it, and then starting up again from Warmachine all up to 75 points. I fell back in love with Circle, which I played in Mark II, and I've got, I think, 6 factions currently. But Circle's always kind of held my heart. And do Magic and Monpok and all kinds of other board games. And it's just my stress relief to play games, and I'm very casual. We don't do competition tournaments or anything like that. I love getting the lore. I love everything that the Privateer Press has built on the world of the Iron Kingdoms, and I love sharing it with everybody.
All right. And my name is Dustin, and I've actually been wargaming since way back in Mage Knight era. That my mom actually helped me get into way back when I was, 12 or something. Ever since, I've been playing a lot of different war games here and there, off and on. Got distracted by video games there for a little bit, but got back on track when I started 3D printing and started helping a digital sculptor with one of the war games he was making. And from there, got involved in a play group that, as Jim had stated, eventually fell apart. But then he got me into Warmachine, which is a huge understatement because I'm sitting here a year and a half later with 8 factions, and I am running out of shelves with models on the way eventually. So otherwise, we play as much as we can, and I've been a Meanite since since it started, and I have enjoyed that faction probably the most. But I currently sit with 8 factions, counting Orgoth being the 8th, and I'm looking forward to running them.
And you've got 3 judicators, right?
I do have 3 judicators that not a single one of them have actually been put on the table yet. So we'll see if that ends up happening before too long.
So, as I said, I'm Jason. My wife and I, we were in a game shop a little over a decade ago, saw some Warmachine models, fell in love, thought they were great, didn't know anything about the game, but we were at a point in our life, our kids were younger, we were just starting out in our careers, and it was just something we couldn't afford to get into at the time. So I'm guessing that was probably Mark II, 10 years ago. I'm not sure. I don't know the timeline of all the additions since. Anyway, we got into board games a few years back, about I guess now about 5 years ago. I've even designed a few that have been published by Stronghold, Spillworks, and a few other publishers in different countries where they put them in other languages for localization. And some things happened in the board game community when everyone was in lockdown. I think it was a real stressful time for a lot of people. People weren't able to go to conventions, and just it seemed like there was starting to be a lot of infighting and things like that. And without getting into the details, nothing involving me, but I just got real burned on the negativity. I always try to be a positive, member of whatever community I'm in, and it kind of killed the passion for gaming for me in general. And for about 2 months or so, we didn't play any games. Donna would come to me on a Tuesday, hey, do you want to play? No, I would just sit there wasting time on the computer. And then my birthday was rolling around last July. She sees on Instagram the mystery boxes and orders one for each of us. Let's try this game out we were looking at so long ago. So begrudgingly, I tried it out, and we fell headfirst in love with the game. Every Saturday night is now a standing date night for the two of us. On Tuesday nights, we were playing every Tuesday night also. That got to be a bit much with work and with our granddaughter. I just saw today on Travis's Twitch stream there's a smaller 30-point Mark IV game called Recon. So I'm definitely looking to try that out and see if that might, be something we like, almost like the old battle group games. We'll try that. Since then, I started a blog because I was having fun writing up details of our games, and someone suggested that I start a blog. I did that. I really love the lore and I love the narrative. To put it this way, Donna describes when we play the game that it's like watching a movie play out on the tabletop where we're the directors and the screenwriters. And I really get that. We really get into the game when we play. And so I started morphing my written bat reps into a more narrative style. And a big thing for me when I got into the game we used to watch Wargaming Girls bat reps, and those to me that's the pinnacle. That's the standard of quality of a bat rep. I wanted to, I didn't want the community to not have that. At the time she wasn't making them anymore. I think she's going to start again. And so I started slowly buying equipment, studying, different things about light and photography and videography, and made a test video, which I was sharing with Jim, and he shared with Dustin, which is how Dustin and I got to be friends. And that was only supposed to be just a test, and I put it out and it was well received. And now I've stuck myself into a 1 bat rep video a month schedule that I'm trying to stick to, but it's a lot of fun. That spurred on the group chat that the three of us have that started this podcast. And so that's who we are. As far as what we're painting lately, I know Jim had just shared a picture with us earlier. So Jim, if you want to talk about what you're working on right now.
Yeah, I sold some of my circle off to Dustin when I was first getting him into it, just to try to ease him into the horde side. I wasn't playing the wolves very much, and kind of just thought, well, I'd rather them see play. Well, fast forward a year and a half later, and now I want to play them again. So I picked them all up, and I just finished off all the beasts, and I've got, I think, Cassius left and a couple of shifting stones, and then most of my circle will be painted, and that's gonna be the first faction I actually finish. And then after that, I'm planning to move on to Scorn, which has been my recent love. But there's so many pieces I've picked up with Scorn, I'm kind of hesitant to even start that project. Like you, I do have a lot of the Italian charter I need to build and paint up. And then I've got quite a few 120 millimeter models that I keep looking at them and having ideas on them, but I need to brush up on my airbrush skills before I tackle those for sure.
And Dustin, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I have the new Mark IV Signar models on my desk in mostly the same state of paint, where they have the main body part or main body sections painted. I just need to go through and finish up the detail work and everything. And then I have Sloan, which is the Warcaster that I've been playing with Signar with lately. And beyond that, I'm kind of waiting to see what my list for Krios is going to end up being into Mark IV, which we'll find out, on the 28th. And hopefully my Krios 2 list will be my first fully painted list, because I have so much gray on my shelf. That's not even funny. One thing that's on my top priority of painting is actually the model that I saw years and years ago that pulled my attention to Warmachine way, way back when, was the Judicator, and that was one of the first models I got. Actually ended up getting it in my mystery box last year, and it sat on my desk unpainted for so long that I'm just like, I need to get that painted because it's my favorite model. So it's kind of what I'm sitting at the moment.
How about you, Jason? What are you working on?
Right now, I'm working on my Italian charter. I started with Lord Rockbottom because I feel that's kind of like cheating because he's the smallest guy there, so it's less stress. I can play with it. I think a lot about what Donna and I when she doesn't paint. She has no desire to get into painting miniatures, but she's really great at picking up color schemes. Our protectorate scheme is the teal and the white, and that was all her, with the purple accents. And so I realized we have a lot of different blue, and we've got purple, we've got orange, we had no green. So I decided to paint my pirates green. So I'm working on Rock Bottom and the Swashbuckler right now. I've just got a 50-point Mark IV list. I should say Don and I are 1,000% casual players. We will play what we want when we want. I'm super excited. We've got Orgoth, Signor, and Kador battle groups from the Gen Con orders. I've got those prime getting ready to paint, and we plan on getting the army boxes for all of those when they're available. But I'm still going to play my scoring with Gators. I'm still she's still going to play her circle with Agatha and the rest of the Pharaoh that she's got in there. So with that said, I'm just using what we have now as far as information and Mark III cards to to build a list for my Italian. And it's going to be fun having a monkey on a barrel just run out there and blow up on people and bite them.
That might just happen to be my actual icon on Discord. Just throwing that out there. That is a good point to bring up, though, as far as this platform. There's a lot of discussion going on right now. There's a lot of emotions running high based on different decisions being made. And this platform was never meant to be a place to bring that to the forefront or debate it. We take suboptimal picks in our lists just because we like those models or we like the background behind them. And yeah, there's a lot of people upset right now with some of the decisions or the timelines, but it's a game and you can do whatever you want. So just find a group that wants to play the way you want to play and enjoy it. There's no need to keep the controversy going.
Exactly. With that said, with Don and I, we haven't played a quote unquote proper scenario in, I don't want to lie, but it's probably been 4 to 6 months. There's a couple from, I believe, Arizona, Thomas and Dessa O'Neill. And I follow Thomas's blog and his YouTube channel. He's got some cool stuff where he makes terrain. He recently made like a wagon. And they came up with a variant called Scenic Steamroller. The gist of it is, at the start, after setting up the terrain before you deploy, the base variant is it's D3+3. Thomas and I have been talking about that at the smaller games like Brawl Machine for Mark III or 50 Point for Mark IV. D3+3 can be a lot. It can make it really live. So we've played around with D3 or D3+1, and you roll it, and then starting with second player, you alternate picking a piece of terrain that's within the 24-inch by 24-inch square in the center of the table. That'll be scored, and whether it's scored by solos, warjacks, war beasts, or units. And if it's an obstruction or an obstacle, then you have to be base to base with it. If it's another piece of terrain like a forest or whatever, then you have to be within it, not completely within, but just breaking the barrier of it. And the same goes for contesting. And it's the same. It's everything else the same as far as Steamroller is concerned. Like Warcasters and Warlocks can score anything, but they can't contest anything. And we've had a lot of fun with that. It gets real immersive because now I'm not scoring this generic circular area that I guess you could say is whatever it is. The circle Ouroboros force is protecting the sacred forest that the Creeksians are trying to pervert, build a necrofactorum there or whatever, or you're the Kadorans are defending this stone wall that's got strategic importance for a defensive fort they're building. So we've been playing like that and absolutely loving it. But just goes to back up what you were saying, Jem, about we're very much proponents of play what you like, find people that enjoy the game and just have fun with the game.
Absolutely. I mean, we play the Steamroller scenarios, but Dustin's our map maker, and he'll set up scenarios. And he set one up recently that had certain objectives where they're supposed to be, but he created a story to go with it and created specific markers. He 3D prints stuff, so he made markers to, symbolize the story pieces that we were fighting over, and that was a big game changer. Like, it really made an immersive map for us.
Yeah, one thing that I enjoyed doing, and it's probably been a few games back, was that I had this bridge that was the exact size of the rectangle zone marker. And I was like, all right, so we'll just put that where it goes. And one of the zones is you're holding a bridge, which have always been key locations in battles. And so just planting Sloan on one edge of it, it felt more like she was actually protecting something or holding something than just a rectangle zone that, whatever is artificially there.
That's brilliant. I love that. In I think it was Domination, there was a particular bridge that I may be saying this wrong because it's been a while since I read that one, but I want to say that Balder and his wolves were trying to get across, or the trolls were trying to get across, I guess, and that Balder and his wolves were destroying the bridge to stop to make it hard for the troll reinforcements to get across the water. And it was, like you said, bridges are such key elements strategically in combat historically.
Yeah, and we also play our maps a little bit different. Everybody talks about the Seattle meta has, the most terrain of anyone's ever seen. I'm going to hazard a guess here that we put them to shame when it comes to number of pieces of terrain on the table. Ours is very scenic and very cluttered, but it makes for a more strategic gameplay.
That's exactly what I was just about to bring up. When I set up the tables, I do try to make sure that there's still charging zones and enough that it's not going to impede the game, although that has happened a few games. But I like my tables full and vibrant and full of life. And even if it's something that's just around the edge that kind of just immerses the deployment zone, it seems to have just added more to the actual table itself, even if you only have the 6 to 8 pieces that they recommend on the main gameplay area.
You guys have shared some pictures of some of that. I'll get some of those and I'll put them up in this part while we're talking about it, so that way they can see. Dustin 3D prints, and I've actually gotten some pieces from him for a scenario that Don and I are working on for Mark IV, a specific Orgoth invading Kador scenario. But he also, not just models, he 3D prints terrain like he was talking about. And I saw there were some pictures you shared a little while back of a river that, if I'm not mistaken, was modular and had some really cool pieces to it. Can you talk about that a little bit, Dustin?
Yeah, so it actually, when the artists who designed it, they designed 6 different sections, and there's a bend, there's like a little rock bridge, and then some various things just to give it some variety. And they sit in about, I want to say, about 6-inch sections. I had printed enough to go through the entire map at a diagonal so that we could have enough that we could have it go, between us, or just going from one deployment zone to the other deployment zone, just so that we can have all of the, because water terrain is one of the more impactful things in my opinion, unless you're playing gators, Jim, then it just becomes a nuisance. But having a river go through, I mean, you have to approach that very, intentionally, and it created very interesting maps with having this elongated piece of terrain, and that wasn't just bound to an 8-inch by 6-inch, or whatever size that normally terrain sits in.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the size, because when I love making terrain out of mostly is out of like rigid foam insulation is what I've been playing with the last so many months. And I'm like, well, what size is everything supposed to be? So I hit Google up and I found, I think it was a section of maybe Warmachine University that had like the standard sizes, and it's great. But I made my forests based off of that, and all my forests are relatively now, I think, small. They're like maybe 6 by 4, and of course I make them up, odd shapes like L's or like kidney bean shapes or whatever. And I'm watching a bat rep the other day. I believe it was Tried and True, or it might have been an older one from Advanced Maneuvers. I watch a lot of bat reps, so they kind of get all mixed up a week later after I watched them. But the long story short, the forests were like the size of 2 buildings, and I thought that was so great because the forests I make don't really feel like forests because they're the size of a house. So I thought that was real great. You talking about the size and how that river, a river really would be like that. It would really cross the entire area of the battlefield.
To give you a little bit of perspective on scale, I believe I was able to get 3 Gatorman posse side by side in the water, and was able to walk them down that river. So it's a very large piece of terrain that really affects the gameplay. And then I just happened to be playing amphibious that turn, so it was really good for my team to be able to get to points faster, whereas he had to struggle and find ways around it.
I'm looking at the clock. We're hitting close to about 25 minutes, which is getting close to about what we wanted the size of these episodes to be. This first one, like we talked about, was more of an introduction, a chance for us to get our feet wet and test it out, see if can we make this work with the Skype call and everything. So with that, I think we're getting close to about time to sign off for this first one. First of all, thank you to anyone who's given us the time to tune in and listen. Time's the one resource you can, when you spend it, you can never get it back. So genuinely, we appreciate that. If you've given some of your time to give us a listen. If you guys have anything you want to say before we close out.
Yeah, just appreciate everyone who's tuning in and sharing the love of the game with us.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the community is what really drives the popularity of a game, and it's the community that keeps me involved and makes it really enjoyable for me.
Well said. So the three of us, even though we may hit on different points, we've all talked for quite some time, for months now. We all pretty much have the same mindset when it comes to how we feel about the game, about the community, and what it means to us. We've got quite a few ideas written down that we want to get into in future episodes. The plan right now is to have a roughly 30-minute long episode every 2 weeks. And we're looking forward to diving into all these different topics and talking about them and sharing our love of the game with everyone else in the community and hopefully stirring up some good conversations. So with that said, thank you, everyone. Goodbye.